بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم أما بعد. So we finished talking about Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. What does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb? So we talked about the concept called Rububiyyah. And now we are going to the second verse, which is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, which is usually translated as the most merciful and compassionate. So when we're talking about from ayah to ayah, some scholars have discussed the relationship between one ayah and the next. In Arabic it's called munasaba, or the connection between one ayah and the next ayah. The Quran is very comprehensive and very rational. So between each surah there's a connection, between every passage within one surah there's a connection, and even between every single verse there's a connection. So sometimes it's absolutely clear what the connection is, sometimes we have to think about it. So we're going to talk here about the connection of Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen and Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So the connection could be that one may ask, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create the universe? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Rabbul Alameen? Because that is what we've already talked about. All praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord of the universe. So first of all, He is the creator of the universe. For Him to be, or for us to be praising Him for it, we have to exist. So He is such. Now, that's the question that comes to our mind. Why did Allah create everything? And why is He Rabbul Alameen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the second verse, He lets us know that this is actually beyond human comprehension. What was Allah's reasoning for the creation of the universe? That is not something that you and I can actually know. And to go more deeper into it, it's actually not even, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond our comprehension. He doesn't work like human beings. He doesn't have the same motives and same things that push Him to do things like humans do. In fact, the scholars of Aqidah state that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have aghrad, or purposes, motives behind things. So to say that why did Allah create the universe, that in that question from the perspective of Allah's motive is incorrect, because a motive is a sign of weakness. How is a motive a sign of weakness? Because you are doing something due to something's effect on you. Right? If that effect was not there, you would not do the action. That means that you are movable, you are changeable, you respond to different, let's say, things that are putting pressure on you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond all of that. He has nothing that pushes Him to do something. He doesn't have urges, He doesn't have impetuses, He doesn't have these type of motivations. So whenever He does something, He does it out of His own accord, not because of some impulse. Human beings usually work out of impulse. As a person gets upset, due to their anger and their rage, they may act out. If they did not have that level of anger and rage and they had a cool mind, they would not have done that certain action, so on and so forth. So by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, what He's actually telling us is, firstly, these questions, why did Allah create the universe? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Rabbul Alameen? That is beyond our comprehension. And secondly, all you do need to know. So this can even be considered in a very distant way. In Balagha they call it Uslub al-Hakim. Uslub al-Hakim is a concept in Arabic rhetoric, where a person doesn't, if he's asked a certain question, he doesn't give you the exact answer that you're seeking. Rather, he gives you a different answer to a different question altogether, as if to say that your question is wrong and you should have asked this instead. An example of this, in the Quran, they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they wanted to know about the moon. Right? Nowadays we have science, so we can tell how the moon works and the phases and stuff like that. And the light of the moon is, acquired through the light of the sun. It's reflecting that, and why does it go in these different phases? But the Arabs, they wanted to know this. Like, why is the moon? Why does it start out as a small little crescent and then it grows to a full moon and then it disappears again? Every month this happens over and over. So they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, I believe, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ. They ask you about the crescent moon. قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. Say that this is for telling time for people and for you to determine when Hajj is. So what was the question actually? The question is, why does the moon change the way it does? It's more scientific. The answer was not an answer to that question. The answer was an answer to a different question altogether. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, don't ask this question, it's not beneficial. What you should be asking is, what is the moon used for? And that was the answer. The moon is used for you to tell time, and it's used for you to tell when the month starts and when the month finishes. So this is called Uslub al-Hakim, and this is often done throughout, you find Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam doing it a lot as well. So in a sense, this could be a type of Uslub al-Hakim where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The question comes to mind, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do all this? Why did He create the universe? Why did He create me? So instead of answering that, a different answer is given, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. As if to say, don't ask this question, ask a different question, and that is, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is my relationship to Him? Right? Don't ask, why was the universe created? Already take it that, okay, the universe is created, now what do I have to do? Who is the creator, and I want to know Him better. So that is kind of what, the connection between the first and second verse. That we are now going to start talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in more detail. So Surah Al-Fatiha introduces us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another connection between the previous verse, verse number 1 and number 2, is that in the previous verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes His lordship, His rububiyyah over everything that exists. And rububiyyah means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that creates and He nourishes. No one can create, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns everything. So when the listener hears this, he says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. He's the Rabb of the entire universe. This has an effect of overwhelming people. If you think about the Lord of the universe, this is not something small. It's everything that exists. And nowadays we have a better idea by looking at, these telescopes and seeing how far people are seeing, how many planets are there, stars, galaxies. It's mind-boggling. And it makes you feel very, very small. You feel overwhelmed. So when someone hears He is the Rabbul Alameen, they feel overwhelmed. And they feel extremely small and insignificant. So then, a question that comes to the mind of such a person is, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even care about me when He's the creator of the entire universe? He has bigger things to care about. This giant supernova exploding here, and maybe some aliens on another planet, and this black hole, and so many different things. Imagine a king who cares and knows every single weak slave in his kingdom. That doesn't happen, right? Like, does the president come and visit all of us and ask the details about this person who cannot afford health insurance and how are you handling your bills? He doesn't have time to care about all that. He usually worries about the bigger things. So now a person may feel like this. When they hear Allah's the Rabbul Alameen, he's like, oh, He's a Rabbul Alameen, he wouldn't care about me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dispelling that perception. This, from the very beginning of the Quran, we realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not someone who just creates the universe and lets people just be. Just do what you want, I don't care about you. That's not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. His nature is different. He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He's very merciful. So what this does to the slave is it dispels the doubt that he doesn't care about me, and you actually start feeling like, okay, he's merciful, meaning he does care about me. He has this quality of mercy towards me. And in order to be merciful towards an individual, you need to really know them. Because you cannot display mercy if you don't know the situation that a person's in. So when you see a person that, they don't have money, they need help, they're sad, they're going through difficulty, then you can show the appropriate mercy. If you don't know what a person is going through, you just say, hey, hello, how are you? And then you go about your way. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, He is also going to know us intimately. And in another surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَحْنُ أَقَرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. We're closer to the human being than the vein on his neck. So this vein is like the jugular vein is so important that if it's severed, a person will die. And usually when a person slaughters an animal, they're slaughtering the neck because that's, it's a very important vein. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He is closer and He's more important. Right? He's closer to us than that vein. So this is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So that's the connection between the first ayah and the second ayah. Now, what does this word mean? Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Both of these words, they're both attributes of Allah. He is Ar-Rahman, He is Ar-Rahim. All merciful, mercy giving, caring. There's various translations that people have made, but we're going to look into what do these actually mean? What's the definition? Both of these words and attributes are derived from a single word. So they're two different forms of one root. And that root is rahmah. Rahmah is mercy. So the root is rahmah, and from rahmah you get rahman and you get rahim. So rahman and rahim are different tenses or different connotations of mercy. Different kinds of mercy, if you will. They're not the same. Rahman and rahim are not the same. It's not. Otherwise, there would be unnecessary repetition in the Quran, and that is looked down upon. So the Quran is not like that. What does the word rahmah mean? The root word for Rahman and Rahim, what does it mean? Imam al-Baydawi, he says, it's a softness of the heart, and it is a inclination. Such an inclination that results in preferring and taking care. Right? And he says also, in the Arabic language, you get other words that are extracted from this. So for instance, there is a word for the womb. The mother's womb in Arabic is called a rahim. A rahim is the mother's womb where the baby grows. Why? Because the mother has an inclination towards what is in her womb. Right? So she loves what is in her womb. She cares for it. So that is why her womb is called a rahim. So now, rahmah, a softness of the heart that causes an inclination, and this inclination becomes a type of caring and preference. So that is rahmah. So for instance, a mother has rahmah for her child. She has mercy for her child. She inclines towards the child. This inclination of the mother to the child leads to her treating the child well. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has rahmah. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a creature. So, He doesn't have like a physical heart, obviously. But when we say the heart of the human being, it doesn't mean like, the pumping muscle. We're talking about the emotion of a human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does care for His slaves. In another place, Imam al-Baydawi, he says, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, and these attributes sound like they resemble human attributes. For instance, we have mercy, right? Our mothers and our fathers have mercy on us. That's why they treat us well. And we also have mercy over our children, over other people. We feel sorry for people. We care for people. Does this mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or we are like Allah in this regard? So Imam al-Baydawi, he says, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, it sounds like it may resemble human beings, but it's actually different. is slightly different. How is it different? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have emotions like we do. He's free from emotions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather has the highest form of rahmah. If you think about it, rahmah is like you feel an emotion, you feel a certain way, you become soft, you can actually experience this condition, so you change when you feel that mercy, and then it leads to you treating someone better. So Imam al-Baydawi, he says Allah is free from the first part. He doesn't change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't change. He's perfect, so He's not going through different changes. However, He does treat people well. So His mercy to us is that He is going to treat us very well based off of, like what He knows and how He wants to treat us, etc. So that is the rahmah of Allah. It's actually beyond comprehension. And the scholars of Aqidah, they also talk about this. Some say that rahmah is actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will to give khair and goodness to people. That's what rahmah means. His irada of a fi'l of ihsan. Allah's will to do good to a person. That is rahmah. And some other scholars say that no, rahmah is actually literal for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's beyond our comprehension exactly how to describe it. And that is why you have those two methods where you have ta'wil and tafweed, etc. So tafweed would be more in line with, I'm not going to try to explain it. It is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it to be. I do know, I have some understanding of it, but I'm not going to limit it to just this. And ta'wil is saying that no, it is Allah's will to do good to someone, to treat someone well. Both are legitimate methodologies of understanding. But anyway, this is what rahmah means. Now, I want to go a little bit into the Arabic and look at what's called sarf, or Arabic etymology. In the Arabic language, we have different ways of, there are different scales to words. What this means is that certain words, if you take a root word and you make it in a different shape, that root word will give you a different meaning. So, for instance, we'll look at rahmah. So rahmah is the root word in the Arabic language, rahima, 3 letters. Now there are 2 scales, if you will, fa'lan and fa'il. So fa'lan is a certain scale. So if you take rahmah or rahima and you put it on the scale of fa'lan, it becomes rahman. You can kind of hear the similarities. Fa'lan, rahman. And there's another scale called fa'il. So if you take a rahmah and you put it on fa'il, instead of rahmah, it becomes a rahim. Fa'il, rahim. Fa'lan, rahman. So these 2 scales actually have certain meanings. Whenever you put any kind of root word on the scale, you'll have the root word's meaning plus the scale's meaning. This is a very interesting aspect to Arabic where it gives you this. Right, so the scale has a meaning in itself, and then the root word has a meaning. So take the root word, put it on the scale, and then you combine the 2 together. So for us to understand Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim better, we have to understand what these scales are all about. So the word Rahman, there are 3 different aspects that some scholars state regarding the scale. Number 1, the fa'lan scale. Fa'lan scale gives extreme meanings. Extreme. So for instance, sukar. Sukar means to be drunk, right? So sakkaran, if you put it on fa'lan, sakkaran, it means very drunk. Or ghadiba means to be angry. So if you put those 3 letters, ghain, dad, ba, on fa'lan, it becomes ghadban. Ghadban means extremely angry. So it gives you the extreme meaning. What does this mean? If you take rahima, mercy, and you put it on fa'lan, it becomes a rahman, it's extreme mercy. So one meaning of rahman is extremely merciful. The second aspect of fa'lan is it means fil hal, right now, in the present. So if you take a word and put it on fa'alan, it means like right now, not before, not after. So for instance, sakran, someone who's drunk. You wouldn't use this word for someone who was drunk yesterday. He's drunk right now. And angry. You don't use the word for, like, for instance, I can't say that you're angry. You're not angry. Maybe at another time you're angry. But right now you're not angry. Right now I'm not angry. But I do become angry. So this fa'alan scale talks about right now. So it's extreme and it's right now. And number 3, it's used for something that's happening at the moment and not after it's done. That's actually the same. That's the tafsir of what's before. The third one is, it gives the meaning of something that is not permanent, right? Something that's not permanent. So that's almost synonymous with the present, but the second one is that it's happening right now, and the third one is that it doesn't last forever, or we're not even considering it lasting. So the lack of permanence, right? Something that is not permanent. So other words that are on the scale of fa'alan, jaw'an. Jaw'an comes from ju', so you put ju', which means hunger, on fa'alan. It means like hungry right now, but not permanently hungry. Atashan means thirsty. Riyan means to quench the thirst. So these are all different words that come on this. So 3 things. Number 1, extreme. Number 2, in the present. And number 3, not permanent. Because something could be in the present tense and be permanent. So it's present and not permanent. So that's what Rahman, you kind of get that understanding. So let's take a look at it again. 3 aspects to the scale fa'alan: extreme, occurring in the present, and not permanent. What this would mean when we say Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So Ar-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is extremely merciful. And I'm going to talk to you about that, like what is the extreme mercy of Allah. Number 2, we're talking about right now, in the present. Because in reality, you don't exist in the past and you don't exist in the future. These are just ideas about like how we express what is to come or what was. Right? Some people think that the past currently exists so that you can build a time machine and go into the past. It doesn't exist. It's gone. The only thing that exists is the present. The future doesn't exist. It didn't happen yet. And the past doesn't exist either. It's just gone. It's just this right now. Right? Right now what we're experiencing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rahman. Extremely merciful, merciful in the present, and there's a connotation of impermanence. Now we're not saying here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not permanently merciful. That's because we get the word Ar-Rahim. Right? Ar-Rahim deals with the permanence. Rahman deals with this. It's not negating that. It's just saying that this word doesn't deal with permanence. We have another word for it. Otherwise, if Ar-Rahman dealt with the permanent nature, then we wouldn't need Ar-Rahim. Right? So different words have different connotations. And that's why we have all these beautiful names of Allah, 99 names, because each name deals with a different aspect. Okay, so to summarize, based on these 3 meanings, we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is extremely merciful to us. Number 2, we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful to us in the present, right now. And number 3, if He wants to take that mercy away, He may do so because it's not permanent. Like if He wants to take it away, He can. Because there's no promise that it's going to be permanent. So that is what Ar-Rahman means. Now what about Ar-Rahim? Let's take a look at the other scale, Fa'il. Fa'il gives a permanent meaning. Continuity, permanence. Always merciful. And it also gives you an understanding of perfection. Steady state. Right? So perfection, when something is perfect, like if someone scores a perfect score on an exam, you would say they got 100%. There's no such thing as 101%. You can't, 101%. The word percent means that out of 100. So how do you do 101 out of 100? That doesn't make sense. And also, 99 is not perfect. Right? 99 is almost perfect. So perfection is a single state that is unchanging. So when we say Ar-Rahim, there's two connotations: a permanent mercy and a perfect mercy, a steady state of mercy. So now, what does Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim mean? Ar-Rahman, extremely mercy in the present, and He can take it away. Ar-Rahim, His mercy is steady, and it'll last forever. So those are the two words, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. When you combine the two, you get this grand understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. It is extreme, it is right now, it can be in the future, and it is a perfect mercy, and it is always lasting. Okay, now we're going to go into some detail, as these lessons have been, they're quite detailed. So I will continue that inshallah. And we're going to look at some differences between these two words. We already talked about a few, but here are some more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why does He say He's Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim? Some scholars have mentioned, why both of these are mentioned together. One reason is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is Ar-Rahman in dunya and Ar-Rahim in the akhirah. What does this mean? Why is He extremely mercy in the dunya? So look at those three things again. Extreme in His mercy, number one. Who receives Allah's mercy in the dunya? Everyone. Not just the Muslims. Muslims get the mercy of Allah, but also the disbelievers, also those who are doing crimes against Allah, they also get His mercy. In fact, you might even say that they have more mercy in the dunya. It seems like more money, more apparent happiness. They don't have true happiness, the happiness of iman, but they got possessions. So this is a mercy from Allah, no doubt. We do say it's a mercy. So in the dunya, they're getting all of this. What about the akhirah? They will not have that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's extreme mercy is not for them in the akhirah. It doesn't encompass all of them in the akhirah. Rather, it's a permanent and perfect mercy. Why is it a perfect mercy? Because it's limited to those who deserve it. In the dunya, who deserves Allah's mercy? The Muslims. They deserve Allah's mercy. Others, actually, deserving, that's a very difficult word to say, but the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would imagine Allah giving them His mercy, are the believers, not the disbelievers, yet they still get it. So there's an exaggeration of that. In the hereafter, however, it's not like that. Allah is not going to be merciful to the people in Jahannam. That is not mercy. This is punishment. He is merciful to the believers in Jannah. And what type of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the believers in Jannah? A permanent mercy, a perfect mercy, and it'll never finish. So He is Ar-Rahim in the akhirah. So Rahman in the dunya, right now in the present He's a Rahman, exaggeration, Muslims and non-Muslims receiving it. In the akhirah, Rahim only the Muslims and forever. Perfect and continuous. That is one understanding. Another one, Imam Alusi, rahimahullah, is a very large tafsir, Ruhul Ma'ani. He says therein that Ar-Rahman is all types of mercy, and Ar-Rahim is mercy without any means. So he says here, Ar-Rahman is any form of mercy. And what he's referring to is what he calls asbab, with asbab and without asbab. Means and without means. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be mercy to He can display mercy directly, or He can display mercy in a hidden way, in a subtle way. So Rahman encompasses all of that. So what he's actually saying is that sometimes you think a person gets sick. Person gets sick, and you're like, okay, this is not the mercy of Allah. This is adab and punishment. But in reality, it's a mercy, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that a person is forgiven through the sickness. So this is a Rahman. Is displaying a hidden mercy. And Rahim is a type of mercy that is very clear, that you can see all the time. Right? It's something that you never doubt. So that's what he says there. Um, Rahim is mercy without means, direct mercy. And Ar-Rahman, sometimes hidden mercy. That's number two. Number three, some scholars state that Ar-Rahman is for the larger mercies in life, and Ar-Rahim is for the subtle mercies. For instance, you have things such as life, food, clothing, shelter, family. These are really big blessings, huge, right? Things that when someone says count your blessings, these are probably the things you're going to mention first. You're not going to say I just ate a cookie. Someone says, like, what are the blessings in your life? I just had a cookie. That doesn't sound right. You would say, no, I have a car, I have a family, I have a life, these kind of things. But is a cookie a blessing? Absolutely. Cookies are blessings, right? As long as you're not allergic. So Rahim is talking about like the smaller, in comparison, the more subtle mercies, such as delicious food, such as the luxuries in life. You have electronics, devices, comforts, a nice couch. So that's another interpretation. Ar-Rahman is for the big things. Ar-Rahim is for they're more numerous, but you would consider them smaller. And lastly here, Imam al-Zamakhshari, I believe, he stated that Ar-Rahman is like we mentioned before, an extreme type of mercy. He says it's like a sea, an ocean with the crashing waves, extreme. And Ar-Rahim is like a calm lake. Sometimes when you go and you see there's no wind and there's no motion, you go to the lake, you go Murphy Candler over there, and you see it's like a mirror, right? No motion. But it's still a mercy. And then when you look at the ocean and the way during a storm, how those waves roll and everything like that, it's extreme. So the lesson from this is how is a single body of water calm and tumultuous? How is that possible? It's not possible. Like, have you ever seen a turbulent calm lake or a turbulent calm ocean at the same time? That's not possible. It's not going to be completely flat and moving around at the same time. It's one or the other. Yeah, the same ocean could be flat and still, and it could also be tumultuous, but it has to be one or the other. The point here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is both. And if Allah is both, it is an indication towards the fact that you cannot fully grasp Him. You can't understand Him fully. Just like you can't understand such an ocean, right? Because practically speaking, it doesn't exist. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of these attributes that seem to collide with one another, they do exist together at the same time. So a practical aspect of this is like some people say, well, if Allah is so merciful, then why is there suffering in the world? Why do people suffer? So the answer to that is that Allah is beyond your comprehension. You can't fully grasp this. He is merciful. Even in that state, He's merciful. But how? That's beyond your comprehension at this time. You won't be able to understand. So that is a lesson that we understand here. All right, so next time, inshallah, what we're going to discuss is the order and repetition, which means why is Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim repeated in Surah al-Fatiha when it's already in the Basmala? Right, when you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, it sounds like repetition. You already said Ar-Rahmanir Rahim in Bismillah, and then one ayah later, again you're saying Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. That sounds like repetition. Is there any benefit to this repetition, or is just redundancy? Well, we as Muslims believe there's no redundancy in the Quran. Redundancy is a bad thing, right? It's just like you carrying on, and it's not a nice thing. So definitely there is a reason for it. So that's the repetition aspect. What about the order? Why does Allah mention Ar-Rahman first and then Ar-Rahim second? Now that we understand what these two words mean, why not Ar-Rahim Ar-Rahman instead of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim? So there is a specific reason why that order is there. Inshallah, we will talk about that next week. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the knowledge of Surah al-Fatiha and His Kalam and the Quran, and give us tawfiq to practice and preach it. Wa sallallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala ala khiri khalqi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feekum.